4th and 5, the national championship on the line right here. He's going for the corner. He's got it.
Boise State for the win. They hand it off to Johnson. Boise State has won.
There goes Davis.
Oh, my God.
For everything. Got it.
Texas is back, folks.
All right, welcome into the Slobberknocker Sports College Football Show, Conference Championship Edition. I'm your host, Dylan Leak, joined as always by my man, Uncle T. We're going to break down everything across the college football world today. We're going to start with the college football playoff rankings, which got released last night. We'll jump into some of the debate, the Bama-Miami debate, what happens if Clemson wins in their conference title game, all that good stuff. And then we'll do some big game breakdowns for all the major conference championships. Before I get into all that, though, got two special guests on the show, my two resident Texas insiders. So I got on the bottom left, Wes Miller, and on the bottom right, Reed Sechler. Both are my big-time Texas insiders. If I need anything answered about Texas, these are my guys right here. And Reed's also my Spurs guy as well. If I need to know what happened to Pop or any of the trades or any of the inside information, that's my guy. So thank you guys for being on the show. Appreciate y'all coming on.
Wes is clearly a good guy too, because he's drinking a Miller Lite. If there was a Bud Light or something like that in the deal, saw them. I'm usually drinking the Miller Lite on this show. I'm jealous. I didn't stop and get a 6-pack today, and I'm jealous that you're drinking them and I'm not.
The last name's Miller, man. I got to represent.
You got
That's
it.
right.
I think everybody that knew my dad would agree. Dad would be proud that I'm slamming a beer while recording a podcast.
There you go. Talking about Texas football, too. Let's get into the rankings, though. We had them released yesterday. The debate was basically going in with the upsets that occurred. There was one spot really there's one spot left, and it was going to come down to more than likely Miami, who got upset last week by Syracuse, and Alabama, who has one more loss but played in the SEC. The committee did what everybody expected them to do. Was it fair, though? I'll start with you, Reed. Do you think that did they make the right decision, or should Miami have been ranked ahead of Alabama here?
I've been going back and forth on it the whole time. I don't know if there's a real answer, because I think Miami's lost. It should have lost 2 other games this year, and that's what's holding me back. It's like Bama, they got embarrassed by OU, and I don't think they deserve to be in because they got embarrassed. And they look at Miami, and I've watched 3 games this year where I'm like, oh, they're going to lose, and they have a miracle. What was the game where they got that touchdown at the end? Virginia Tech. Exactly. Yeah. And so you look at calls like that, or you look at the Cal game where everyone turned it off in the 4th quarter, and you wake up and they won, and there's calls that change that game as well. I don't think there's a right answer, and I think, Turner and I talked we briefly discussed this, and Wes. I think that, there might be some changes after this weekend and how they do it, but I think they put Bama in there to make a statement to Miami saying, you guys were close to losing 2 other games, and you should have lost them. And that's the only way I see that. But I think there should be other teams. I don't think Bama's the best team out of that little pot. I think Ole Miss and South Carolina are both better teams than Bama.
I agree, and that was my problem with it. And Wes, I'll come to you next, but it was like, okay, if you're going by, like, no matter what you go by, I don't know how you put Bama in. If you're going by best resume, to me, it was Ole Miss. If you're going by who's playing the best right now, it would be South Carolina, right? If you're going by the only reason Bama didn't drop more after that Oklahoma loss is because their name was Alabama. They put them right in a spot so that they knew if something weird played out, they could throw them in. Wes, what do you think? You think Bama, they got it right with Bama ahead of them?
Well, I was listening to Joe Klatt this morning, and he was kind of saying, I guess, along the lines of, well, what better option do you have? And so you look at the remaining teams in the bubble. South Carolina is playing the best football right now, but Bama has the head-to-head on South Carolina. You take a look at Miami; they've almost lost. They could very easily be 8-4. You look back at the Virginia Tech game, you look at the Cal game against some really inferior opponents. They really struggled, but I feel like that's also the theme of college football this year. We just watched Georgia go to 8 overtimes at Georgia Tech. We're watching Florida all of a sudden have this random resurgence through the latter half of SEC conference play. I just feel like that this feels more like March Madness than it does like college football. I feel like it's almost any given Saturday. But while I don't think Alabama – well, I don't want personally, with a very biased opinion, for Alabama to get into the playoff. I'm very 50-50. It's more of a coin flip for me. Do I think that Alabama on a neutral field would torch Miami? Yeah, I do. I really do. And I think that if you're looking at the quality of team, the roster, strength of schedule, I don't know what other option you have as a committee, to be honest. Do I like it? No, but I don't know if I would slide Miami in that slot, to be honest.
Yeah, I would have probably gone. You want to go, Dylan? Or
no, go ahead. Go ahead, T.
I was just going to say, I mean, to me, and me and Dylan talked about it a little bit, I have no idea when you looked at the computer metrics about percentage of getting in, it all showed that it looked like it was going to be Alabama in this spot. And Miami, like you said, they played a ton of close games. They have no one to blame but their damn selves. They were winning 21-0 against Syracuse, blew the lead and lost the game. I mean, if you're gonna lose that game, you don't deserve to be in the playoff. You're up 21-0. You can't do that. You know the committee's always going to go with Bama here. But my thing is, I thought Ole Miss should be in this spot. If you look at the resume and you break it down, Ole Miss demolished South Carolina, given it was earlier in the year.
In Columbia.
Yeah, in Columbia.
Well, I think a big problem with all this also is this plays into the college football fan base that there's like this huge bias that looks at the college football playoff committee and they say, well, the college football playoff committee inherently has SEC bias. And so when you play into the SEC bias piece of this whole thing by injecting Alabama into that last slot, it just creates a very volatile storyline across college football. So
yeah, I just hope that they don't. And I mean, I know we're going to touch on this, but it's like SMU, they have ranked, what is it? Eight. If they lose a close game to Clemson, and I've already heard, with all the fishy officiating going on in the ACC this year, someone was like, I wonder if Clemson's going to get all the calls in that game because then they're guaranteed one team, but they think, and by the way they're ranked, they think they'll get SMU in there too. Now, will the committee do that or will they screw SMU? Who knows? But it's a one-loss SMU team to a decent BYU team. They're a decent team. Lose that, and then if you lose in your conference championship, it would be absolute bullshit if they take them out. And they're going to be setting a real bad precedent in this first 12-team playoff. That it's like we're going to drop you from 8 to behind a 3-loss Alabama. I mean, that would just be wild to me, and I hope they don't do it.
So that's I want all of y'all's opinion on whether they would do this because, like you just said, setting a precedent is key here, right? Like last year, we had this obviously the situation where Florida State gets left out, right? But they could do that because that was the last year of that 14 playoff. So they're not setting a precedent for anything. But if you do that year one, where you drop a team who's 11-1 out of the playoff for losing in their conference championship, you set a really dangerous precedent going forward that now you kind of have to follow. Now, they can kind of do whatever the fuck they want, so maybe not. But in my eyes, it would be really, really dangerous to do that year one. What do you guys think, Rhea and Wes? What do you think that SMU, if they lost in the conference title, would they get left out for Bama?
Yes.
100%.
Because
really?
Well, it's only because of the fact that like people have a point with the inherent SEC bias when it look, I'm a Texas fan. I'm happy that Texas went to the SEC. I love watching SEC football. I would rather watch SEC football than any other conference, maybe save the Pac-12 from last year. But if we're going to be honest and forthcoming about this, we would rather objectively as college football fans and want to see a great product on the field. I think the majority of college football fans would rather watch Jalen Milroe, Jam, or the Alabama Crimson Tide brand. And if you have even the smallest percentage of possibility in order to inject them into a playoff spot, you would, because nobody cares about SMU outside of the state of Texas for the most part. You have a couple of fans, right, that are like, oh, well, I'll always root for the underdog, SMU, Pony Express, 1980s, what have you. But I think that most people would rather watch Alabama, to be honest.
I agree. And I personally think SMU should be in, and I think it is so dumb to, hurt someone that played in the conference championship game. I think that stinks.
Right. I think SMU should be in, by the way.
I think they should be in. And I think everyone agrees. I mean, maybe someone doesn't, but I think SMU should be in the playoff. You can't, hurt a team that's fighting for a conference championship, especially if it's a close game. However, it comes to question, SEC is the moneymaker, and the Big Ten the moneymakers of the college football playoff right now.
Well, unfortunately, TCU fucked it up for everybody. TCU fucked it up for everybody when they got their doors blown off by 60.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, well, that's almost the source behind moving to a 12-team playoff. It's because TCU beats Michigan, they play Georgia, get annihilated, and now everybody has this new metrics, there's strength of schedule, there's all this new stuff that is now injected into the selection process. And so blame TCU if you're gonna be mad at anybody.
That's fair. I just don't. My issue with it is I just do not like that we can just we ignore the bad loss of Alabama. Like, that is so frustrating to me. They got their doors blown off by Oklahoma, who was a one-win SEC team coming into that game, and they scored 3 motherfucking points in the game. I mean,
they lost to fucking Vandy too.
They lost to Vandy.
I mean, it's like, what are we talking about?
Hey, don't be dissing on Diego Pavia.
Look, I love me some Vandy. I love me some Vandy, and I love the Commodores, but that's 2 6-6 football teams they lost to. And you can say what you want about Miami's schedule, and I agree. You can say what you want about SMU's schedule, but they still had 2 losses for Miami, 1 loss for SMU. They still overall had more wins, and their losses weren't as bad. I know Miami lost to what was it, Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Yeah, again, it's the ACC. Georgia Tech damn near beat Georgia last week. Went 8 overtimes.
But Alabama beat Georgia, Dylan. That's the problem.
I agree, but Georgia's so fucking down this year. I just
well, they're playing for the conference championship. This is what I mean by any given Saturday.
I agree. It is. That is the problem with this year. Is there's so much parity, and there's just every single team is flawed. Even Oregon, who's undefeated, there's plenty of flaws on that team. It's just the way of college football right now.
Agreed.
Yeah. Anyone have anything they want to add here on college football playoff rankings before we move on to the big game?
I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say that if SMU, in most years I wouldn't do this, but I'm gonna say if SMU loses a close game, that they're gonna put them in over Bama. And I just think the committee is gonna think that their hands are tied and they have to do it, because if they don't, then why are we even playing these regulars? What does it matter? I mean, SMU's lost 1 game to a BYU team, which is a far better loss than losing to Vandy or losing to Oklahoma by 21. BYU's a better team. You can't, if they leave them out of here, every other conference is going to be like, well, what the fuck are we doing? I mean, you're going to put a 3-loss Alabama that lost to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt over a 1-loss SMU that only lost to BYU, and their second loss would be in a conference championship game, which you should not be penalized for. I get that back in the 14 playoff, you had to potentially penalize these teams for losing in the SEC championship or whatever it may be, or the ACC championship. And obviously those conferences were only going to get 1 team in, and the SEC was always going to get 2 teams in the old format. Here, I think if they put Alabama in over a 1-loss SMU that lost in their conference championship game, I think it's going to be the committee is going to have to answer a lot of questions. And I don't think they're prepared to do that this early in the new college football. I think they're going to say, Alabama's lost 3 times. They're out. I don't know what especially with Miami and Alabama, where they're splitting hairs between those 2 teams right now.
Right.
And Miami has a strength of schedule of 55 and lost to Syracuse and Georgia.
What about Ole Miss? What about South Carolina? That's what I want to circle back to.
Agreed. So that's what I'm saying.
Where did you talk about how South Carolina got fucked by SEC officiating, and they should have 2 losses.
They should not have lost to LSU. 100%.
No, they shouldn't have.
Exactly.
But at the same time, though, who's playing the best football out of those 3 teams? Out of those 4 teams, let's say Miami. Why are we not taking into consideration who are the 4 teams right now that are playing the best football that deserve that spot?
Yep.
That's a great point.
If SMU gets blown out, cool. That's in the conversation too. Who is going to go in there? Who's playing the best football? Because last year they kind of did that with Alabama and Florida State, right? They kind of did that. Who's playing the best football? Is Alabama? No. They beat Mercer. Great. They beat Auburn. Everyone could beat Auburn besides A&M. Sorry, Aggies.
But we all know at the end of the day that this is a business. And as grimy as going down that path might be, Alabama is a gigantic brand that generates tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And so people are going to tune in.
That's why they're doing this, but it doesn't make it right, because again, like Reed
said,
South Carolina is playing the best football of any of those teams, hands down.
Lenore Sellers is the best player on every college football field right now. Period.
He's
playing awesome.
Out of his mind.
Ole Miss is better than Alabama.
Agreed.
And we've been hammering this home. We've been hammering this home for 3 or 4 weeks, and I knew this was going to happen. That's why they had, Ole Miss the second lost that third game. They're fucked. Like there's no way they're putting them in over Alabama. But maybe I'm different, but I would way rather watch Ole Miss than Alabama. I would way rather watch that team, Jackson Dart. Like I'm so tired of watching fucking Jalen Milroe not be able to throw a 4-yard out. Like it's so frustrating to watch them. They're not fun to watch this year. And people are tired of Alabama. That's the funny thing. And it is, Wes, you're dead right. And Reed, you're dead right. Like it is a money thing and I get it, but it's funny because I guarantee if you polled most fans who aren't Alabama fans, everybody fucking hates Alabama. Like nobody likes Alabama. Now they're polarizing, right? They're polarizing and they make money, but nobody likes them. Nobody actually wants in the playoff. That's why this is causing a big stir right now because nobody believes they deserve to be in. Nobody wants to watch them anymore. It's whether people were pissed last year when they got in, although I didn't want to watch Florida State play fucking Michigan.
On the other side of that coin, Dylan, I also think people don't want to watch another 2022 TCU Georgia. Where
I get it.
You know what I mean? And by the way, I want everybody to know that I agree with everything you guys are saying. I think SMU deserves that spot. I'm just thinking objectively as third party what the college football playoff committee is going to do. They're already showing their hand, right? I feel like Alabama is a shoe-in at this point. It's extremely frustrating.
Okay, one more question, Reed. If you were on the committee, because I thought you made a really good point about how they put in Bama last year based on the fact that they were playing the best football of anybody, not necessarily resume. Definitely not resume, or Florida State would have got it. If it were you right now, and we already said we both think that, or we kind of all think that South Carolina and Ole Miss are better than Bama, would you put in Ole Miss or South Carolina for that last spot, given South Carolina is playing better than Ole Miss, but Ole Miss beat South Carolina and Columbia 27-3 earlier this year?
I was just thinking that, and I think, I was going to ask this question. It's like, what would the coaches, if you were to pull the top 6 coaches in the college football playoff, who would they not want to play? And I guarantee you, and I think too, no one wants to play South Carolina right now.
Yeah,
you have the hottest player in college football. He's the best player in college football. He's like the most fun person to watch. He's playing great football, and I don't think anyone wants to play them. They're on this streak, and we all played sports. We all know when you get in a rhythm as a team, you're kind of unbeatable. And that's why I like Texas is kind of starting to get on that path. And we'll talk about later. But, I would have South Carolina over Ole Miss, even though the head-to-head. And that's a whole nother conversation again. And I know you can't do that. But when I look at these teams, I think South Carolina is the best of
I think right now, obviously, South Carolina is playing great football. And sure, I still think the line on the game would be – anyway, a pick 'em, if not Ole Miss, a slight favorite. I mean, South Carolina was a 3-point dog against Clemson, albeit I know it was on the road, but they were an underdog against Clemson. I mean, you can't play these games. If you polled the coaches might say, yeah, we wouldn't want to play South Carolina right now. But if you polled all the coaches, they would say, no, Ole Miss beat the shit out of them earlier in Columbia. There's no fucking way. Why are we playing regular season games if we're going to go, oh, they're playing the best football right now? That's what we're going to be. It's going to be real dangerous if they put Alabama in over SMU. And who knows? Maybe SMU just wins the game and we don't even have, there's no debate here anyway. But I'm just saying, I think if you go to South Carolina, and I get that it was early in the season, but if the coaches are going to say, so then why play these big non-conference games if it's not going to matter? Why would A&M say, hey, let's play Notre Dame because this matters for a resume? If they're going to be like, hey, let's just take the team that's playing the best football right now, then then these teams are going to be like, we're not going to play anybody. Why the hell would we play anyone?
That's true. I think both of y'all are right. And I think that is the frustrating thing about the committee is that we don't have like a set rule. like set of rules where we can say this is the criteria. They have like a general outline, but they can pick and choose. Like last year, Alabama's playing better. Well, Jordan Travis got hurt. I guess we got to put Alabama in. But then this year, South Carolina's playing the best, and we're just going to say no, Alabama goes because they have a better resume and they beat South Carolina head to head. Like, it's just frustrating that they pick and choose. And I think that is the frustration for most people looking at this objectively. It's like, well, how do we know who deserves to go and who is going to go? It's different. So let's move on. Let's talk about the big game breakdowns. We're going to start with our team. I know T's not a UT fan, but he roots for him because they're my team. But
so Dylan didn't kill himself on a Saturday. I root for him.
Exactly right. Like if you want to see someone having a mental breakdown on a Saturday for 3 hours, come sit with me during a Texas game. But I digress. Yeah. I got my two Texas guys here. I want to talk about the SEC title game. It's interesting because it's not meaningless by any means, right? But in terms of like playoff positioning, it's basically irrelevant in the sense that both these teams are getting in regardless, right? Texas sits a 2.5-point favorite, which I thought was very interesting because earlier in the year, Texas was a 3.5-point favorite at home, which means you're close to pick them on a neutral field, essentially. If you looked at that line and what it would be the day after that game, it would have been Georgia by like 3 or 4. So this line has flipped significantly from that time, and that's largely because Texas is trending up and Georgia's trending down. And I'm curious kind of what you guys' thoughts are. We know Texas comes into this game. They trailed for less than 8 minutes in 11 of their games, and then in the Georgia game trailed for 45 minutes. So it's the only game that they've dominated it, right?
Dylan, let's talk about the Georgia scoring drives. Number one, 6 of the 7 started inside the 50.
Go ahead.
These are all things that are never considered, and especially for SEC conference fans, to take a look at the fucking score, and they think that because Texas lost by double digits and 2 scores, that they just got the shit pounded out of them. That's not what happened, actually. But it's also astonishing to me, based on the bad quarterback play from Quinn Ewers, that they turned Carson Beck over 3 times. I love Quinn Ewers. They turned Carson Beck over 3 times. He had the worst quarterback rating by a Georgia quarterback ever, literally ever. And when you take a look at that metric, where they started their scoring drives, the fact that Trevor Etienne ran all up and down the field, which was weird for a Texas defense. He's also not playing on Saturday. These are all things that you have to consider. But the one thing that you know about Texas and that you know about Sark is that Sark, of course, is going to approach this from a scheme mastermind perspective. His opening script is going to be beautiful. They're transitioning from inside zone run game to outside zone. The biggest problem in that game was that Texas wide receivers and man-to-man coverage, and like whether it was, cover 2, rolling, they're bracketing coverage over the top on Isaiah Bond. Nobody can get separation. So my opinion, I think that Texas is going to maximize on the outside zone run scheme and find ways to get their skill players more involved. But Isaiah Bond and DeAndre Moore's health is going to play a huge part in what that game plan is going to look like. I think Ryan Wingo has to get involved really early.
I completely agree. I think Ryan Wingo is definitely key to this game. You watched Bond last week and made some mistakes, didn't look all too great the whole time. DeAndre Moore was he was out there a lot, but didn't really do a lot. But I think it's going to be a good game, and I think it's going to be a lot different. I do think that, and I agree with Wes, they started the ball, their scoring drives all came from like the 40-yard line. And we talked about earlier the punting situation because we're averaging nothing.
Michael Curran's he's not very good.
He's really, really bad.
we were looking.
That's a nice way to put it, Wes. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not very good. He's a freshman. He's not very
averaging
good.
like 40 yards
It's okay.
at punt. It's okay. But he wasn't even playing that game. That was a walk-on. That was punting.
Yeah. Forgot about that.
You look at this game, and I walked away from the game, and when you rewatch it, you're like, well, it wasn't too bad, right? I do think I do think the Texas offensive line played probably their worst game in a long time. And I think Quinn played by far his worst game in a long time, and he looked scared. And there's a lot of things that he did that he hasn't done in a long time, since probably his first year as a starter. So I do think the team has a chip on their shoulder. I think Quinn shows that when he needs it most. And I think he didn't do that versus Georgia. But in a game where he needs to prove the doubters wrong, he's typically he did pretty well against A&M. But I think this is going to be a game where the run needs to be established. You need to make sure.
Can I add something to that?
Establish the run. I think our defense is going to be fine. Look, Carson Beck is playing probably his best football he's played in a little bit. I think he had 12 interceptions like after the Florida game, and I don't think he's had one since. Yeah. So he's playing good football.
Tennessee was his best game by far.
Now, I will say this. If you look at his numbers, he's thrown, I believe, 16 touchdowns, 0 picks against non-SEC schools, and 12 touchdowns and 12 picks against SEC schools. So it's not like he's done it, but he's done it against I forget, it was at the Citadel. It was somebody. Oh, it was UMass. It was UMass.
4 picks.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yes, he's played better, but I thought the same thing. I was like, damn, he hasn't thrown a pick in 3 games. And I went through and looked at it. I was like, well, who have they really played? I played Georgia Tech's defense is fucking bad. So, but
can I add something to what he said real quick?
Go ahead.
Something that also gets lost in this entire conversation is the injury concern as far as Quinn's ankle goes. That and also his mobility in the pocket. But I think that everybody would agree from the eyeball test, outside of the slide fumble and the tip pass pick 6 last week, Quinn looked really good maneuvering in the pocket. He really did. He looked like what I thought how he was going to play after Michigan. He's climbing the pocket. He's making good throws. He's making throws off platform. If he could play like that and be mobile in the pocket, not fall on Kelvin Banks, and then they give Kelvin Banks a sack, like I really do think Texas has a very, very, very good chance to win this game by double digits, by 10.
Wow.
That's my prediction.
Speaking of Kelvin Banks, and I love that prediction. Speaking of Kelvin Banks, I know, Reed, you were kind of monitoring their injury report. Either of y'all have any idea if he is going to play? Because he got hurt last week. He didn't come back into the game.
He's going to play.
I think he's going to play.
He's going to play. Regardless, Trevor Gooseby filled in there like a puzzle piece.
He played good.
Yeah, he did good. Okay, here's my other question then, and then I want Turner. I want your take on the game too. But so we in that game against Georgia, we had 27 carries for 29 yards. We could not run the ball, and both of y'all talked about how this is going to be a big factor in this game. Now, Trey Wisner has been phenomenal the last 2 games. I believe he's averaging over 150 yards over the last 2 games, over 5 yards per carry. Looked really good. Texas has definitely gone more to a run-heavy scheme the last couple weeks, and it's worked. Is Texas going to be able to run here? Because Georgia's weird. Okay, I looked it up. Georgia, after that Texas game, has been terrible against the run. Terrible. If you factor out the Florida game where DJ Lagway got hurt in the second quarter, even if you include the UMass game, they are giving up 192 yards rushing a game since that Texas game. So they have not been good defending the run. Georgia Tech had 250 yards rushing against them last week in Athens. Texas has been good running the ball, but in that first matchup, they could not run a lick. And some of it was sack yardage because Texas got sacked 7 times. So the numbers weren't as bad as they sound. But even if you factor out sacks, I think Trey Wisner averaged like 3.7 yards per carry on 15 touches. So it wasn't good. Are both of y'all, I'll start with you. Are we going to be able to run the ball here?
I think it's going to be difficult. And I do think we will establish it more than we did in the last game or in October. But this is probably, Georgia, out of everyone we played this year, they probably have the most athletic linebackers and, defensive line and edges that we'll see. And I know A&M has a good front as well. And, that was really, I was so impressed by that, by our offensive line. I think the game will be better. I think we'll be able to establish a run better than we did. It will not be what we did against A&M. I will tell you that. I do think, I could see Trey Wisner, maybe getting 18, 22 carries and getting around 80, 86 yards. I could see it. It's going to be a big dose, but I could see it. I do think, though, now that the run game's established, Sark can get a little more creative in how he gets. Look what he did against Florida. I think he can find ways to get the ball on the run game, having seen what they did against us. So I think that is more of a, and my side, thinking about the run game, it's more of a sigh of relief, kind of knowing that Sark is seeing what they do, how they fit run schemes on defense, Georgia does, and how he can get creative with his team going forward with the run. And I think he'll figure something out on Saturday.
Wes, do you agree?
No, but not in like a bombastic way. I don't think that Texas is going to replicate their performance like they did against A&M and run for like 200 plus.
No.
But I do think they're going to find a lot more success on the ground than, of course, the first matchup. I'm going to tell you why. So through the Georgia game, Texas almost exclusively, outside of specific play design, was an inside zone running football team.
Terrible.
Period. And that was why there was a question about the running game leading up to the Georgia game. This was questions from the fan base, from insiders within the program. Can Texas run the ball on Georgia? We found out very quickly, per the scheme implemented, no. They started kind of transitioning to more outside zone. Look at the Kentucky game is a prime example when they really unleashed that thing, and Trey Wisner ran all over Kentucky. By the way, personal opinion, I think Jaden Blue is the most talented running back on the roster. He just can't hold on to the football.
It's interesting. He's basically been eliminated from getting from snaps. I mean, unless it's pass catch. He's
I
almost
think he had 16 snaps last week, 5 of which were carries, 2 targets, one of them being a touchdown.
He's good in the passing game.
He's a good player. He's a great player.
I can tell you this. I will say this. From this game to if we can make it to the championship, I think there's going to be a game where he breaks off one of his long runs like he's had.
I think so too.
His explosiveness is great, and it's starting to. I can see it again when he's making his cuts. He needs to hold on the ball and get trust with the coaches. But I think he's starting to get that one play.
Yeah, where he's gonna bust a big one in a moment.
But hold on. Yep. I had a conversation with Trey Wisner's mom yesterday, and we were chatting a little bit on a podcast about Trey's mentality and approach to game days. While I think Jaden Blue, talent-wise, and in terms of just raw athleticism, is a more talented running back than Trey Wisner, that kid's mentality and his work ethic, he's solidified as the number 1 running back the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think, though, going back to what I was saying earlier, changing scheme and knowing what Sark does best, I do think they're going to find a lot more success running the football than you might think.
Okay.
To be honest, Mykel Williams and Jalen Walker are going to be the key. Can you neutralize those 2 guys?
Yeah, we couldn't. They couldn't the first one. Turner, from a non-Texas perspective, since we're all Texas guys here, and we all like the Horns in this spot, because I do too. I think Texas wins this game. I think it's real tight, and I think Quinn plays much better than the first game. I think Arch's legs will play a role on a play or two. Like 100%. I know Stark called out that package
in the past.
100%. I swear to God, I was about to say that. I think we're gonna have a wrinkle here where we're going to run something and it's going to be a zone read. He's going to pull it and throw a big play. But from a non-Texas perspective, who do you like? Do you think Texas wins this game? What are the key factors for you, T?
I just think Texas, the first matchup, and you guys obviously much more in depth Texas football than me, but I just looking at it up front, that was the difference in the game, right? Beck didn't play well. Ewers didn't play well. And like Wes touched on too, it's like, Texas, when you really go back and watch that game, they didn't just get whipped. It was just Georgia started in really good field position. But I will say this, the offensive line from Texas is going to have to step up big time if they're going to win this game. They got absolutely embarrassed the last game up front. It was bad. Quinn had no time to throw the ball, and those tackles were like, seeing ghost out there. It's like, when you're playing the Georgia defensive line, this isn't the Big 12 anymore, and they hadn't played anybody even comparable to those guys coming into it. So we'll see if they're ready for it this time around. I like the way the Texas defense is playing. I think they're playing phenomenal. I would say, if I had to call the game, I'd say Texas by a field goal. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Texas finds a way to win this one. I'll be rooting them for all y'all's sake and for Dylan. Hopefully he makes it. But Dylan will probably be a little bit more calm because he knows they're already in the playoff. But I think I'm gonna think Texas wins a close ball game. But I agree with what you guys said. I think they'll run it a little bit better because how could you not? They were so bad the first matchup. But it's certainly not going to be like they were running it on A&M, like you guys both touched on. But I could see them running for hopefully 100 yards this go around, which isn't anything crazy in college football, but the first matchup they couldn't run it at all. So
the good news is that Shamar Turner and Shamar Stewart are a perfect tune-up.
Oh, they are.
Just being honest.
And
the Shamar brothers in that front is a perfect tune-up going into that game. And
everybody in the stadium knew we were going to run it, and we ran it right down their throat.
Oh, it was
time and time and time again. It was awesome. I mean, and here, I guess I'll bring up this one more point because both of y'all touch on Quinn Ewers, and I agree. Like last year, I don't think this is crazy to say. He was way better last year than he's been this year for the most part. I think he's gotten better in the last couple of games, and he did play. I even talked to Turner because I'm not a big Quinn Ewers lover, and I talked to Turner at halftime, and I said he's playing phenomenal in the first half against A&M. He's playing awesome. You can't have a play in this game like the pick six for A&M because there isn't the margin for error that there was in that game where he can throw that pick and then we're about to put the game away again and go up, 24-7 and he fumbles again. Like you can't have those turnovers. He had 3 in the Georgia game, 2 fumbles and an interception, and then Arch had a fumble as well.
Yep.
We can't. I think Carson Beck is going to turn the ball over here. I think Carson Beck sucks. And I think he's not, I don't think he can handle Texas's defense, which I believe is the best defense in the country, hands down. And so if Quinn doesn't turn the ball over, I think we win the game. So that is so key to me that you guys brought up. I just wanted to touch on it again. I think he's got to take care of the football. If he plays like he did in the first half against A&M and he does take care of the football, doesn't turn it over, I don't see how Georgia wins this game. I really, really don't. And I'm pessimistic a lot of the time, but I think that we're going to win this game relatively easily. If he turns the ball over, different story. Because then it snowballs for him. Like even if you remember the Kentucky game, like he lost the ball. I don't even know if it was considered an interception or a fumble as a pick six. On the next drive, it's like the game's still at hand. Fine. He drops a snap. He picks it up. He throws it backwards 15 yards. Like it can snowball on him real quick if things go bad.
But they're all injury related, though. Like the Kentucky thing, that was right after the injury. And I think we would all agree Texas and that coaching staff downplayed the fuck out of the oblique strain, leading all the way back to the Oklahoma game. He's not looked the same at all. Not even remotely the same player.
I will give you that. He has not looked the same.
Not at all.
For sure. I agree. And he did look, for the first time, look good against A&M.
I will say this. I'm going to say this real quick.
Yeah,
after the injury, and Wes said this about, it kind of spiraled. So when he got hurt, it was almost, I think it was the second quarter, and Quinn's footwork after that. No, I know it's crazy. His footwork's been all over the place. His footwork after the injury is when he went on that kind of 2 drives where he was throwing to throwing into Golden. His footwork slowed down a little bit because he didn't have he knew he was hurt and he kind of slowed down. And I thought that he kind of got in a rhythm. And over time, your ankle injury is going to get worse. And it did. And I think in the second half, it just spiraled down and he couldn't play on it. But he did. He fought it out. But I think his footwork has actually looked a little bit better the past 2 weeks, knowing that he has his ankle injury and maybe it's making him not, think about trying to scramble as much. I don't know, but his footwork has looked a little bit better. And I think maybe that's a little bit because of the ankle. I don't know.
That's a good point because I think when he, like you said, in terms of footwork, it feels like when he's off, it's like happy feet. Like he's just all over the place with happy feet. Yeah. And it's like he can't have happy feet right now because he can't move as well. Maybe that is the reason why. All right. If y'all want to add anything else right now on Texas, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to move to the ACC title game.
Auburn better be able to make a field goal.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Do not freaking let him kick from the right hash. He cannot kick from the right hash. He
never has been able to kick from the right hash.
Wide right every time.
Right.
All right. Let's go to SMU Clemson. So we talked a little bit about this before in terms of what happens if Clemson wins. Now the question is, does Clemson win? Interestingly, SMU opened as a 2.5 point dog. Is now a 2.5 point favorite, and it's trending towards 3. So we've seen where professionals stand on this. They're backing the Pony Express here. Wes, I'll start with you here. Does Dabo Swinney continue his dominance in the ACC title games? He's 8-1 straight up at Clemson in ACC titles.
Oh my God! I would rather you have asked me a betting question. But
answer whatever you want. I'm just trying to be a good host here. Go ahead.
Well, I think what I'm thinking about the most is how well Cade Klubnik's been playing through the latter half of the season. The guy's been nails. Total turnaround from where he was a year ago, when the majority of Clemson Tiger fans were like, "We don't think Cade Klubnik's a guy. Time to ride pine." And I think he's been fantastic. I think he's much more mobile than he was. He's using his legs more. He's making more off-platform throws. I think that he gives them the best chance to win. But Maffa's health is going to be unbelievably key in this game. He was not healthy last week. It was obvious to everybody watching the game. If Maffa is healthy, and when I mean healthy, I mean they're giving that guy 18 to 20 carries, I think Clemson wins by double digits, man. And it's not because I'm an SMU hater. It's not at all. I think they have a very, very explosive offense. But when I watch Clemson, even though they lost, I just feel like even head-to-head position group by position group, it's just hard to argue talent at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that is kind of the debate here is like SMU's been the better team, but Clemson has a talent advantage without a doubt here. T, what do you think? Is Wes right, or is your Pony Express going to win this?
I've been sticking with the Pony Express all year. Dylan wrote them off after week 2 when they lost to BYU, and I said,
"Well, to be fair, they damn near lost to fucking Nevada week 1." Okay,
they started really, really slow. I mean, if you look what they've done the last 4 or 5 weeks, they've just been beating the shit out of everybody. The only game that was like remotely close was that I think the BC game where I think they still ended up winning by 11, but it was like a one-score game.
And Duke.
Well, Duke.
Oh no!
Yeah, Duke was a while back.
Duke.
That one they should have lost.
Yeah,
they should have lost.
Yeah.
Duke.
I mean,
they blocked a 30-yard field goal to go to overtime.
Yeah. I mean, Clemson. I agree on paper. Obviously more talented at each position, but I mean, I think it's rare when Clemson opens as a favorite and then SMU, the pro money's on SMU and moves them to 2.5 like right away the other direction.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that think SMU is just a better overall, just the way they're playing right now. An overall football team is just like Reed touched on earlier with South Carolina. People just like the way SMU's playing right now and they expect them to win the game. Klubnik, I mean, I don't know. I'm with you. He's been playing better. You look at some of these games, they're just going through here. It's like, Clemson's going to have to be able to run the ball, like you said. Klubnik, when he throws, like in this Louisville game, he threw the ball 50 fucking times. Cade Klubnik should throw the ball 24 times a game tops, and he should run it, and they should just be running the ball. If Cade Klubnik's throwing the ball 50 times a fucking game, you're going to lose. And if you don't lose, you got really lucky. I mean, he's a solid player. Whatever. I mean, mobile quarterback, but you don't want Cade Klubnik throwing the ball 50 times.
Can Phil Maffa actually make a contribution to the game?
Yeah.
That's a good question. SMU's been pretty good against the run. Reed, what do you think?
I like this game a lot, but I love SMU. I love the story. I love Rhett Lashley. He's a dog.
Yeah,
great coach. Always been a fan. I agree with Wes. I think it might be fun for the beginning, but I think I'm not the biggest fan of Dabo. But he has a lot of experience he can coach. And in these games, he knows how to win these games. And do I think when they make the playoffs, will they go far? No, they will not. But you see teams with their backs on the line or an opportunity to do something. Look at OU. Like you look at these teams that need to do something. I'll just say SMU doesn't. They know they need to win to make the playoff. But I just feel like Clemson, with the experience of Dabo, knowing, hey, we still have a shot to make the playoffs and do something, he'll get his team fired up. And I think it'll be a close first half, but I think it's a 10-point win for Clemson at the end of the day. Big good game, though.
Yeah, I've been back and forth in this. Both of y'all, all of y'all made good points. I will bring this up, and I do think I think it was Wes who touched on Klubnik's legs. He's been really, really good using his legs. It got overlooked in that game against South Carolina because Lenora Sellers ran for $166 on 16 carries. That's all anybody talked about. But Klubnik had 4 runs of 10-plus yards in that game. He won them the game with his legs against Pittsburgh, had a 50-yard touchdown run on the final drive for them to win that game. I was watching that one live. But I do want to bring this up about Clemson because this is what scares me about Clemson when I was thinking like, okay, they're more talented, they're the better team. Like it's also a much tougher spot. SMU is going to start feeling that pressure of like, okay, if we lose this game, are we in? Are we not in? Like, how does this? They've never been in this spot before. And to y'all's point, Dabo's, and I'm not a big Dabo guy either, but he's been in this spot and he's won it a lot. And also that game's basically in their backyard and it's a home game almost for Clemson a lot of the time. But every time Clemson has played somebody with a fucking pulse this year, they have gotten beat. They have not played a soul and beaten anybody. Here are their fucking wins this year. App State, NC State, Stanford, Florida State, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, and the Citadel. They have one win over a team with a winning record this year, and it's over a 7-5 Pittsburgh team who finished 3-5 in the ACC, and that Pittsburgh team outgained them by 100 yards with a backup quarterback. So
Ouch.
that team might win and be the 4 seed.
they very well might.
Or the 12 seed or whatever.
Ouch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good question too. Like if Arizona State wins, who gets that 4, who gets the 12? I have a feeling they would fuck Arizona State, but I don't know. That said, I'm gonna pick SMU in this game. Just look, everything about me, like as somebody who kind of is in the betting space, would lean Clemson if this got to 3 because I just can't get to 3 here. I just can't. Like my numbers don't get me to 3. So if that got to 3, I'd have a hard time not taking the 3. However, just looking at this and who's going to win, and the fact that Clemson hasn't played anybody, maybe it's biased me rooting for SMU because I'm definitely rooting for SMU. Very possible that's the case, but I'm going to pick Pony Express here. It's going to be a tight game. If SMU doesn't get nervous in this spot and they play freely, they got a good shot here, I think. But it could go. This is a coin flip game. It could go either way.
I agree.
Agreed.
Okay, let's move on. Let's go to the Big Ten. Big Ten title, again, similar to the SEC. Both teams are in the playoff. We've got number 1 Oregon against number 3 Penn State. Talking about numbers that I don't get to, I do not understand how this is trending towards 3. If this gets to 3, this is like a bet your baby bet on Oregon here. And I'm not a big Oregon dude, but I just don't understand from what I've seen from Penn State this year how this could be this tight. I make this 5.5, but I'll start Turner. I'll start with you. I haven't started with you yet. Oregon, Penn State, Big Ten title game. Oregon trying to win the conference their first year. Do the Ducks win it? And if they do they win it easily, or is this a tight game?
I mean, Penn State's defense is pretty good, but I have no faith in their offense in this game. I think Oregon's gonna, man, I don't know. If I had to say, I would take Oregon from anywhere by like 7 to 10 points. I think it's going to be in that range. Penn State, man, I mean, they should have lost to fucking USC.
Yes, they should have.
In the middle of the season. It's not like the Coliseum's a tough place to play either. No one fucking shows up to that game. So it might as well be a neutral site field. It's not a loud place to play. Yeah.
I picked Minnesota in that game, by the way. I thought they were going to win that game outright. Yeah, they should have won.
Yeah, even more recently, should have, like, they faked the punt from their own fucking 20 to beat Minnesota. Isn't that what it is? That shows how much faith James Franklin has in his guys. Like, no, I'm going to go fake a punt from my own 20 instead of punting away and trust my
James
defense.
Franklin.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's never won. The guy's never won a fucking big game in his life. He likes running up the score on fucking Maryland. I mean, yeah, no, I'll take the Ducks. I'll take the Ducks by 7 to 10. And yeah, out of all the people, college football coaches, James Franklin's definitely like top 5 that I just fucking cannot stand. And I don't know if you saw, I don't know what happened with 2 of his starters, like that, big allegations of rape or something. And it were 2 guys on the team. And of course the reporters are there to like ask him the question. He would step up to the mic and a reporter would ask him something. And then he would come have the team liaison, the media guy read the same statement, and they did it like 10 times back and forth.
Dude, Penn State's going to Penn State, man.
Yeah. Old Sandusky ball at Penn State. Yeah. No, I'm going to take Oregon by 7 to 10. Yeah, I think, but I do think Penn State's, defense is good enough to keep them somewhat in the game. I just don't see it being a blowout.
They just haven't played anybody. What do y'all think?
I don't think they're any good.
I don't think it's a blowout, but I mean, I do think Oregon's going to win. I think the reason why this line is so low is, and I've kind of said this whole time about Dylan Gabriel. If you can neutralize Dylan Gabriel,
yeah,
you have a shot. And I think every team, but I think Oregon has some weaknesses. They look good. They look very beatable. Penn State can make it close. They have a good defense. And I think that's why the line is down there. I think the Vegas is expecting Penn State's defense to show out. And I think they could. I don't think so. I think the Ducks are going to win by 10. I think it could be close until the end of the game and Oregon could run away with it. But James Franklin has never won a big game. I don't see him doing it. And if it is a big game, it's going to be Ohio State, weirdly enough, because he should have won that game in Ohio State.
100%. 100% should have won.
He's not going to win a conference championship game. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
It'd be the funniest James Franklin story of all time. Not ever won a big game and then upset number 1 Oregon in the championship.
All right,
And in a year that they never should have been to the championship because Ohio State got upset by Michigan as a 21.5-point favorite. Yeah.
They're an 8 seed. I think they are. But
No, I couldn't agree more. I think they're overrated. Wes, what do you think?
I think Drew Aller fucking sucks. I don't think that Penn State can hang with Oregon at all. I think Oregon's going to win by 2, maybe 3 touchdowns.
How many points do you think Penn State gets?
I think Penn State scores. I would go 17 to 21.
That's fair.
I would say 17 to 21. You can ride Nick Singleton all day. Like guys, Drew Aller is a shitty fucking quarterback. Period.
100%.
He's
We've been saying that
awful.
for years. He's fucking.
I watched the USC game.
They're better with the fucking backup in there when he came in against fucking Wisconsin.
Guys, Penn State's not good.
Yeah, they're not good.
They lose every meaningful game they've ever played for the last 6-7 years, even through Joe Paterno's age. Fuck that guy, by the way. But you go look at all the games they've played. Or actually, let's take a look at Oregon, Ohio State, right? In Autzen Stadium. Ohio State has an elite defense, talent-wise, across the board. Dylan Gabriel picked them apart. I hate Dylan Gabriel as a Texas fan, by the way. I was at Red River last year. That kid, say what you want to about his deep ball and his ability to stretch the field vertically, but I will tell you one thing, in the right system, that guy is surgical.
In the right system for sure, which this is for him.
Yeah, dude, I mean, you still have Evan Stewart. You still got Tez Johnson. Like, they're loaded.
Tez Johnson's been hurt, and he's back this week 100%. They're healthier.
Caught a touchdown last week.
Yes, he did.
Oregon's going to win this game by 3 touchdowns, guys, and I wouldn't blink if it wasn't more. 17 to 21.
I'm not a guy who's usually says this like big outright win in a spot like this, but I agree with you. I think it's going to be 2 touchdowns at least. I really do. I just don't see how Penn State hangs with them. I guess they could put up maybe they could get to 17 to 20 points, but if this turns into a shootout, they're fucked. And I don't. If they score less than 17, they're gonna fucking lose. I just don't see what's the path for them to win here.
Play power.
Penn State needs 30 points to win. Penn State needs minimum 31 to win.
Yeah, I think like Reed said, if they had success running up the middle and could shorten the game,
just don't throw the ball.
I can see them doing that.
Hand it to Singleton.
That's their only shot.
Singleton with 40 carries.
Yeah, and you look at it like again,
legacy game.
Yeah, right. Penn State
Saquon game part 2.
Yeah, they're gonna need 2 Saquons in this game. This is a spot where I think Oregon blows them out of the water. And I will say this as well. I think Oregon's very fucking flawed. I really do. I don't think Oregon's that great. I just think Penn State is not good. And James Franklin against AP top 10s, top 5s, top 3s, top whatever, like anybody with a fucking pulse, he's terrible. He just never wins that game. And like Reed said, I could be wrong here too. I could be absolutely dead wrong. I'll tell you what though, I'm going to be laying. I'm waiting to see if I can get a 3. But even if I can't, I'll take the hook anyway. And I won't think twice.
I am smashing Oregon money line to death. I'm smashing Oregon money line to death. I will put the mortgage on my house on this game and smash Oregon money line.
I love it. All right, last Power 5 or Power 4 conference championship. We got Arizona State and Iowa State. And
what a fun game!
Yeah, it's a fun game, an unlikely game. We had so many possibilities of how this plays out going into last week. We got probably the best 2 teams. I guess you could maybe make an argument for BYU as being a good team, but Arizona State beat them pretty handedly. Actually, interestingly enough, Iowa State got to 10 wins. They were one of only 2 teams in the Power 4 conferences left that had never had a 10-win season. So now the only team left without a single 10-win season, Turner, do you know who it is?
Vanderbilt.
It's Vanderbilt, the Vanderbilt Commodores. Our producer is a huge Vanderbilt fan, and so it's funny that it's them. But I love Bailey. Anyway, okay, Reed, I'm coming to you first for this one. Arizona State has been the story of the year. Kenny Dillingham has done a phenomenal job, coach of the year level job at Arizona State. Came in there with limited scholarships, picked to finish 16th in the conference. They were odds of north of 200 to 1 to win the Big 12. and now they are sitting here as a 2-point favorite in the Big 12 title game against Iowa State. Who do you like?
I love Kenny Dillingham. He is. You watch these videos that they post. Like there was one yesterday about him in the locker room. Telling him to finish him off. He's awesome. Well, this is a fun game. Matt Campbell's back in the Big 12 championship game. I don't like Matt Campbell at all, but I'm going Arizona State because I love Kenny Dillingham. I think they're a really good team too. I haven't really watched Iowa State, but I do think it will be kind of close. I think Matt Campbell gets his guys ready to play. They have they run that kind of 3-3-5 defense that will make the game a little bit tighter than people assume. This kind of shootout, I don't think Iowa State can do that, but I think at the end of the day, the momentum rides with Arizona State. They'll get it done. I love Kenny Dillingham. It's a good story. He's a great coach. I love Sark. He's my favorite, but Kenny Dillingham's like up there are my favorite coaches in college football, maybe number 2. Like he's awesome.
He's one of my favorites too, even though he almost fucked him in that BYU game. And I love Kenny Dillingham. And I'm over here, me and Turner watched the game. I'm like talking him up, and then all of a sudden they almost lose the game.
He's
running backwards.
He should absolutely win. With what he has, he should win Coach of the Year for sure. In my opinion. But when me and Dylan were watching that, Dylan had never seen, I guess, like paid attention. He's like, oh no, this is what he fucking does at the end of the game. He's like counting down every second. He's like, he'll take 70 yards off his total offense to like not have to punt the ball or throw it up. And then me and Dylan were watching it. He was like, I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I was like, yeah, with 7 seconds, it's going to be close, but he needs to drop back and throw this out of bounds. And then, of course, God, that was crazy how they all rushed the field, and he's just screaming. The best is him screaming with his wife right behind him. He goes, it's fucking over. The game's fucking over. There's people on the field. We're not leaving the field. He's screaming. And then one of the ref turns around. The ref turns around and looks at him and is like, dude, that's not how, that's not how this works. They're reviewing it. And they said there's 1 second left. If you don't get the fuck off the field, we're going to give you a penalty. And he had to clear everybody off. And the best was BYU caught that ball too at the 3 yard line.
The 1 yard line, damn near scored Chase Roberts. Yeah. Well, and as somebody, obviously I was a coach for a while. I used to do weird shit like that too. We had stuff where in high school basketball, you get one free delay a game. So when the clock runs on a made basket at the end of the game, we would take intentional delay of games to get an extra timeout. We'd take the ball and throw it in the stands and get it and so the clock would have to stop on a made basket. We get a free timeout under a minute to go. So I get doing weird shit, but that one was you might want to make sure you can run the fucking clock out before you do something that weird. Anyway, Wes, who do you like? Are the Cyclones going to pull the upset here? I don't even know if it's an upset. They're a 2-point dog, but
I think Cam Scatterbo is going to run all over Iowa State, to be honest. He's one of the most exciting players in college football right now, at least at the running back position. I've never understood the obsession from college football pundits with Matt Campbell, ever. I'm not a big Matt Campbell guy. I know that he's turned Iowa State into a quote-unquote winning program. I'm not a Matt Campbell believer. I think Rocco Beck sucks. He has to throw the ball 40 to 50 times a game in order for them to win football games. They can't run the football. No, they can't. I think this is if I would take even at let's say that Iowa State was even +7, I wouldn't pick them to cover. I would probably take Arizona. Oh no, I think Arizona State's going to win by a touchdown, maybe even more.
I agree with that. Go ahead, Turner.
I was going to say, I think it's about a 7-point game. I think Arizona State wins. I think Scatterbo gets it 30-plus times. He got it 28 last time. They're just going to give him the ball 30 times, and he's going to get up and shake his head like he always does and shake the CTE off. God love him. I don't know if he's going to remember his name by the time he's 40, but that kid runs the ball hard. He runs it real hard. So Kenny Dillingham's got a real one with Scatterbo, that's for sure.
What did he do? What did he do when he was celebrating last game? That Kenny Dillingham got mad about? I forgot what he did. Something he signed
an autograph or something.
That's right. He scored a touchdown, signed an autograph. Yeah, that was actually fucking great.
And he was just it's fine. We're up 21. Relax. And Dillingham was just lighting into him.
I was looking at this. You look at the games that Iowa State lost. They lost to Kansas on the road, and Kansas ran for 237 on him. Devin Neal had 116 yards and 2 touchdowns on 18 carries.
Oh, man.
And then you look at Texas Tech, their other loss, which was in Ames, which is a tough place to play. Actually was on Tech money line in that game. They were a 13.5-point dog. And Taj Brooks, who has not had a good year.
Dog.
He's awesome, but they didn't run him nearly enough this year. And he's in that game at one of his better games, right? 23 for $125 and a touchdown. So to me, like Turner said, like y'all said, Scattaboo is going to get this ball 25 plus times. They're going to run him into the ground just like they did last week. I don't think he had 4 touchdowns last week. I mean, they're going to run him to a Big 12 title, and Arizona State's going to win the Big 12 title. And I think y'all are probably right. It's going to be around a touchdown. I'm not saying the reason I said that is when you said it, this line would be 7. If that line was 7, I would take Iowa State because that number I don't get to that.
I literally bet on bias, and I hate Matt Campbell a lot.
I bet numbers. I don't like Matt Campbell, but I would not be able to take that at 7. But I agree with you.
I started hating Matt Campbell when he played in the Big 12 championship last time. Remember when he was like freaking out in the sidelines the whole game, and the whole internet was like, "What is wrong with Matt Campbell?" And I think ever since then, everyone's hated Matt Campbell.
Yeah,
he should have taken a job. He should have taken the job.
He's a douche. No one likes Matt Campbell.
No, you're absolutely right too. He should have taken a big job. Like I don't know what
he's taken a job back then.
Oh,
he doesn't deserve a big job.
Yeah, but
we did 4 years ago.
Yeah, he did.
So did Tom Herman.
No, I'm saying he should have.
He should have if he wanted to leave 4 years ago, he absolutely could have. He just decided.
Matt Campbell's never going to leave Iowa State. He's going to be
not anymore.
No, he's going to be there. He's like, is it Ferentz at fucking Iowa? He's going to be at Iowa State as long as Ferentz was at fucking Iowa. He's going to be there forever. They pay him a decent amount. He makes a decent amount of money, and the fans fucking love him in Ames because they were fucking dog shit for a million years. And every time they have a winning season every year now. So the people, that's all it takes for the people in Ames, Iowa. They know they're not winning fucking championships. So coaches in general are less and less likely to leave their schools now. You're going to go to a Power 5 school and run with their NIL program? Cool. Get one player, he leaves the next year. I mean, if you're comfortable where you are, stay.
Yep.
Stay.
One positive thing that we've had from this is at least more coaches are going to probably stay now. Because I agree with that. It's like, why would you leave? Like, look at Kalen DeBoer. I mean, why would you want to go into a fan base like that where you're basically like he has opened Pandora's box over there, man. It's
dude, you're following Nick Saban.
Yeah, it's like,
dude, the best.
Why on earth would you want to follow in Jesus's footsteps and claim to be the prophet? Like you can't do it, bud.
Now every time DeBoer loses a game, now he has to listen to the guys on. He's got to listen to Legend on Paul Feinbaum.
Oh yeah,
fucker losing his mind. We are Alabama. Losing his fucking I love how Feinbaum just sits there and lets him go for 8 minutes.
He laughs. He loves that.
I love the fact that Nick Saban drops a shit bomb every single college game day broadcast. It's awesome.
Yeah. Saban's been great.
Oh yeah, he's been great. He has been great. All right, let's go one last game, and then we'll just run through after this one. We'll just pick the last couple because they're smaller conferences, but this one matters. Mountain West title. It's a rematch of last year's Mountain West title. It's a rematch of a game earlier this year that Boise State won. The line is 4. Boise State's favored by 4. Boise State's been in that top 12 realm for the last 7+ weeks. If they win, they are going to be a top 4 seed. If they lose, though, they are almost 100. They are 100% out. However, that would mean that UNLV more than likely will be in the playoff. That it would flip some things because UNLV would be the 12 more than likely. You would think.
What about Tulane?
Damn.
So, okay. Well, had Tulane not lost last week, they would have. It would have been interesting to see had Tulane not lost last week and Iowa State won this week. What would have happened with those two? But since Tulane lost, I think. Even because now they have got 3 losses, and then Army's 10-1. I don't really think they're going to make an argument if Army were to win that game. So, to me, the winner of this game goes. It would have been much more interesting had Tulane beat Memphis in that game. But regardless, whoever wants to start here, I'll let whoever wants to jump in. Boise State, UNLV. Tell me your thoughts on the game. Who wins?
I think that Hajj Malik Williams is one hell of a player. at quarterback for UNLV. I think that he's kind of resurrected what that offense should have looked like at the beginning of the year. I know everybody's going to talk about Ashton Genty and the Barry Sanders rushing record. First of all, if he does break the record, he deserves a Heisman. Second of all,
yes, he does.
Will they run? I think they're going to run Ashton Genty into the ground. I watched Boise State and Oregon at the beginning of the year. Everybody did. And that's when Ashton Genty really cemented his footprint on college football for the rest of the season. Boise State is an extremely capable offense, even outside of Ashton Genty. And I don't see Haj Malik Williams being able to basically play the game of his life and carry that game, carry UNLV to a win. I got Boise State straight up.
Reed?
I haven't watched a lot of UNLV. All I know is they run the go-go with Brandon Marion.
Yeah.
Go, baby.
But I watched a little bit of him. I agree with Wes. I think Boise's going to win. I think, probably be a good game. I don't know too much about, what UNLV does. I haven't watched a lot of them, but going off of what Ashton Genty's done this year, and I think keep giving the rock and see what he can do until the team shuts him down. They're probably going to keep winning until he gets under 100 yards, maybe 120, because they give him 40 rushes a game.
Yeah.
So until they can somewhat neutralize him, I'm going to keep saying I'm going to say Boise, but that's all I got.
I think it's a very close game, but I think Boise wins just because it's on the Smurf turf. They're getting to play at home. They're getting to play at home at night instead of playing at a neutral. And I think that actually makes all the difference here. Boise State really, and me and Dylan stay up watching games late. They really haven't struggled with fucking Wyoming the other night. They haven't been playing their best football lately. So, and even when they were playing, I think, what is it? They only beat Nevada by 7. I mean, they're not rolling people over. UNLV's a solid team. And like I said, if this was at a neutral site, I might even all the pressures on Boise. I might even take them to choke. But with this game being in Boise, I'm going to say Boise State by a field goal. But I think it's a close game. I don't think Boise blows them out. I'm going to echo what you guys said. I'm picking Boise here, but I will say this.
The first matchup against UNLV, UNLV had a really good defensive game plan, and I think a lot of teams since then have really kind of just mirrored that, because what people realize is that the entire offense obviously is around Ashton Genty, but more than that, if Maddox Matson can't use play action, he's much less effective. And so a lot of teams have now said, go ahead and we're going to just throw 7 or 8 in the box every time. And we're just going to gamble that you can't run shotgun drop back passing to beat us. And that's basically what's happened in a lot of these games that have been closer, right? Like if you look at the box scores, obviously the Wyoming game was close. Obviously the UNLV game was close, but one that was actually extremely close that it doesn't show up on the box score was San Jose State. San Jose State had a 4th down and 1 at the Boise 40 in a tie game in the 4th quarter with 12 minutes to go. Got the first down and the ball popped out. Boise got it, went the other way and scored, and it was on SVP's bad beats for because they ended up covering 14 in that game. They won by 21, but that game very easily could have gone either way. And it's all happened since that UNLV game. So Barry Odom does a really good job. He's a better defensive mind than anything Boise has. And it's just going to be a question of if Ashton Genty can run through 7 and 8 man boxes, and that forces them to be, and that opens up the play action, and he's able to run for $160 or 70, they're going to win this game by a touchdown or more. If they hold him to what they did last game, which I believe he ran for 3.9 yards per carry against UNLV, and it was tight the entire fucking way. And this will be a coin flip game. I'm going to say Boise wins. Like Turner said, it's at night. It's on the Smurf turf. It's a home game. It's going to be, 95% Boise fans, but this could be very, very interesting, especially if UNLV gets an early lead. If UNLV gets an early lead, and this comes down to Maddox Matson's arm, it wouldn't shock me if we're looking at UNLV pulling an upset here Friday night. I think you're
going to see a lot of RPO from Boise State, to be honest, to kind of neutralize some of these 8-man boxes. Boise State hasn't run a lot of RPO, but I'd be interested to see if Maddox Matson can actually make the right read. It's funny because they ran a lot of RPO against Oregon, and so
yes, they did.
I don't know. I think it's just all dependent on. I think this is a game of X's and O's rather than just straight up talent versus talent. But people need to watch out for Hodgman Lake Williams, that kicking ball.
Yeah, he can ball. And I wonder, too, if you're, like you said, like, wonder if they haven't pulled out some of that RPO, knowing they're going to win most of these games anyway, and now knowing this is the all or nothing game for them. Like they're not stupid. Like, of course, the fans probably think they can win a title, but nobody believes that. But getting in the college football playoff is their title. So winning this game, getting to the college football, that is their championship. So they're going to pull out all the stops here, as will UNLV. So it should be a fun game. We'll run through these quickly and just give me your picks, and then we'll get out of here. Tulane Army, who you guys got in this one? We don't even have to break it down. Just who you picking in this one? Army Tulane's a 5-point favorite. Tulane for Reed.
Wes? I got Tulane.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Tulane. They're good up front. They should be able to stop
on Tulane, huh? No, I'll take Tulane. I don't think they're gonna lose this game. All right, the other ones we got are I'm pulling these up right now. We got the Conference USA title, 6 p.m. Friday night. Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State, 5-point favorite. Western Kentucky beat them last week at home to get into this game. Now Western Kentucky going to Jacksonville State, playing them on their home turf. I'm taking Jacksonville State in this one. It's going to be a tight game. This will be a fun game to watch, actually.
I'm taking Jack State too.
Jacksonville State, Rich Rod.
Oh, we got back-to-back sweeps. Okay, little action here. It's on a Saturday night. Ohio at Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio is a 1.5-point favorite here. Could go. Miami, Ohio won this last year, I believe. I think they won the MAC last year.
I'm gonna go regular Ohio.
Regular Ohio.
Yep.
Wes?
I don't know, man. I've watched a little bit of action this year, and I like watching Ohio. I'll go Ohio.
That's the only reason why, because I've watched them a little bit this year on the action.
I'll go Miami. I'll go Miami, Ohio on this one. I'm gonna take Miami.
I was going to take them if nobody else did, but I'll take them anyway. Give me Miami, Ohio in this matchup. I think it's a tight game. I like watching some of these smaller conference championships. Okay, we got one more. Marshall at Louisiana. Louisiana Lafayette's a 6-point favorite in this spot. It's on Saturday night at 6:30 p.m.
Raging Cajuns all the way, baby.
Yep, I got the Raging Cajuns as well.
We are Marshall.
Oh yeah, I love it.
I'll take Marshall. I'll take the Raging Cajuns at home.
Okay, last question, and I'll let y'all get out of here. And like I said, thank you guys for coming on. This was a blast. Hopefully, we can get y'all back on here soon, and we'll get you guys to come in the studio. Reed, do you live in San Antonio? I forget.
I'm in Dallas. So
okay,
I should be pulling for the ponies this week.
I know, right? Yeah, that's your ponies right there.
No,
but, okay. If obviously you guys probably would pick Texas. If you couldn't pick Texas, if we say Texas doesn't win the championship and you had to pick a national title right now, national champion, who's your national champion right now? If it's not Texas, right? Wes and Reed, give me an answer.
Reed, go ahead. I'm mulling between two, unless you want me to go first.
I'm mulling too. That's a tough question. I don't know no one stands out right now.
Nobody stands out.
I'm going Ohio State. I think they have the best roster top to bottom in college football, regardless of what happened at Michigan. I just think that Ohio State is too good. And I think that Ryan Day damn near played for a national championship a couple years ago. Give me the Buckeyes.
I'm gonna say the Buckeye. I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna say Georgia. If Georgia plays their best football, they can win a championship.
Yeah, that's true. They have the roster. Both those teams are kind of the same. Like if they play to their potential, that's probably those two in Texas are the three like by far best teams.
I think if Georgia played Oregon, I think Georgia would beat Oregon right now.
Oh, I agree. I'd make Georgia a favorite against Oregon right now, actually, by a point. But Turner, who would you take? I know you can say Texas because you're not a Texas homer. So who would you take?
Well, yeah, I think I've touched on it before. I would take Texas. If not, it would be Ohio State. Top to bottom, I've said it. I know they fucked up against Michigan. I think Ryan Day's a fucking idiot. But I mean, if they could just get the ball to the fucking big play receivers and get Judkins rolling, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that their roster is the most expensive, so there's a reason that they have the best team on paper. I really do. I do think. I mean, my actual pick would be Texas. I do think they're going to win the national championship, but if not, Ohio State.
it's funny because when you go look at the list, you're like, man, this is such a wide open year. Anybody could win. And then I'm looking and I'm like, well, I don't think they can win. I don't think they can win. And it comes down to like Ohio State, Georgia, Texas. And it's like the same story as every year. So yeah, I would probably take, I guess if you flip a coin between Ohio State or Georgia for me, I guess I would say, I guess Ohio State, but I don't like Will Howard, but I don't like Carson Beck either. I guess I'll say Georgia. Yeah,
I just don't think Georgia has the talent at the skill position like Ohio State does.
No, I agree.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Will Howard's my whole thing.
100%. I just don't buy Will Howard at all. Anyway, all right. Well, Reed and Wes, thank you guys so much for joining us. I appreciate y'all coming in, talking everything Texas football. Gave us
Thanks for having us.